You got something?
Do you recognize that?
This is why Hank Schrader never caught Heisenberg. Not because he couldn't, but because he refused to see the truth sitting across the dinner table. Of all the mysteries in Breaking Bad, few have inspired more armchair detective work than the great question of federal incompetence. How on earth the DEA agent Hank Schrader failed to connect the dots between a stolen gas mask traced directly to his brother-in-law's high school and the rising meth empire ravaging Albuquerque? The answer, as always in Vince Gilligan's morally immaculate universe, lies in pride, perception, and the thick fog of human blindness, mostly Hank's. Let's start with the obvious. Hank Schrader, self-proclaimed badass of the DEA, couldn't have imagined his timid, khaki-clad brother-in-law leading a double life as a criminal genius. Walter White was the sort of man who apologizes when you spill coffee on him, a man who would meekly endure his wife correcting his order at a restaurant, the kind of husband whose idea of rebellion was teaching chemistry with excessive enthusiasm. To Hank, Walt was a mild academic curiosity, smart enough to make a model volcano, too weak to open a pickle jar. The thought that this man could orchestrate a meth empire was, frankly, laughable. And that is precisely the point. Hank's arrogance was as instrumental to Walt's success as any Erlenmeyer flask. He was too busy playing cowboy cop to notice the outlaw sitting at his own dinner table. From the pilot onward, the show revels in Hank's macho posturing, his crude jokes, his beer-soaked swagger, his desperate need to appear unshaken by violence. This is the man who cracked jokes over a severed head on a turtle because he couldn't afford to admit it rattled him. Behind the bravado, Hank was fragile, a man so consumed by his image of toughness that he couldn't bear to face the vulnerability of being fooled. That fragility becomes fatal blindness. He saw Walt as a massive pussy, to borrow the general consensus of half the fandom, and that perception was unshakable. A chemistry teacher? A family man? Balding? Timid? Broke? The man couldn't even handle his own birthday without existential collapse. To Hank, Walt was the physical embodiment of failure, an emasculated intellectual, pitied and patronized in equal measure. You don't suspect that man of criminal brilliance. You pity him for existing. The irony, of course, is that Hank did have the evidence. The gas mask from Walt's lab. The connection to Jesse Pinkman, Walt's former student and newly minted meth cook. Walt's increasingly bizarre behavior. His sudden gambling winnings. His miraculous second cell phone. His convenient appearances at DEA stings. And his newfound confidence that seemed to bloom alongside Heisenberg's empire. Hank had the entire blueprint of the mystery pinned to his office wall, and still couldn't read it. Why? Because the portrait of a criminal genius in Hank's mind didn't look like Walt. Hank's profiling, shaped by years of machismo, racism, and class bias, painted Heisenberg as some streetwise hardened figure, a cartel type, someone other, not a meek white science teacher in a beige jacket who grilled chicken in the backyard and muttered through poker games. When the gas mask led back to Walt's high school, Hank didn't think twice. Clearly it must have been some degenerate janitor or delinquent student, preferably one with a criminal record or darker skin tone. Walt? Impossible. Even if the mask had been found in Walt's car, Hank might have chalked it up to a prank. That's how deeply entrenched his perception was. To question Walt would have been to question himself, the infallible DEA agent who'd spent years mocking the man across from him at every family dinner. To consider that this pathetic, henpecked high school teacher had been outsmarting him under his own nose was unthinkable. When the truth finally crashes down in the now iconic garage scene, Hank's trembling, "I don't even know who you are," met with Walt's chilling, "If that's true, then maybe your best course would be to tread lightly." The revelation doesn't just break Hank's world, it annihilates it. Every smug assumption, every beer-soaked laugh at Walt's expense, every blind dismissal of his brother-in-law's intellect, curdles into humiliation. The man he'd pitied for years was not just a criminal. He was the mastermind Hank had been hunting. It's the kind of twist that, if the show had been told from Hank's perspective, would have been derided as utterly implausible. And yet, viewed from within Walt's web of deception and Hank's ego, it feels disturbingly real. There's a reason the show never plays Hank's blindness as mere stupidity. It's thematic. Breaking Bad is a world powered by pride and perception. Walt's arrogance mirrors Hank's. Both men are prisoners of their self-image. Walt can't stand being underestimated, and Hank can't stand being wrong. One becomes Heisenberg to reclaim respect. The other loses everything because he refuses to see the truth standing beside him. They are mirror images, two sides of the same coin, labeled hubris. Even the secondary characters are caught in this pattern of underestimation. The cartel underestimates Gus. Gus underestimates Walt. Mike underestimates Walt's capacity for vengeance. Walt underestimates Jesse. And later, Jack underestimates Walt's ability to retaliate. Everyone in Breaking Bad is undone by the same fatal error, assuming they've sized up their opponent correctly. It's practically the show's thesis. Never mistake familiarity for understanding. And yet, the series teases us with how close Hank truly came. The sketch of Heisenberg with his hat and mustache, eerily reminiscent of Walt's own appearance, passes before his eyes, unnoticed. The stolen lab equipment, the improbable coincidences, the sudden burst of fortune. Each clue dismissed because it didn't fit the profile. To viewers, it feels absurd. To Hank, it was logic. After all, who in their right mind would suspect their cancer-ridden, car-wash-working brother-in-law of being the kingpin they've been chasing for months? That is the tragedy of it. Hank doesn't fail because he's incompetent. He fails because he's human. Because love and ego make terrible investigators. Because even the best-trained mind collapses under the weight of its own preconceptions. Because Hank Schrader, self-proclaimed rock collector and big man of the DEA, was blinded not by lack of evidence, but by the dazzling brightness of his own certainty. Walt gets away with it, for a time, not because he's invisible, but because he's inconceivable. He hides in plain sight, cloaked not in brilliance, but in mediocrity. He is the world's most dangerous camouflage, the unremarkable man, the one everyone overlooks. By the time Hank finally sees the truth, it's too late. The mask has long since slipped, the meth empire built, the body's buried. His aha moment happens not in the field, not through deduction, but on the toilet. Perhaps the show's cruelest joke. The great detective, brought low by a bathroom epiphany, realizing that every clue was always right in front of him. The universe, ever the comedian, saves its best punchline for last. In the end, Hank's blindness isn't the plot hole. It's the point. Breaking Bad isn't about crime and punishment so much as it is about the vast, delusional theater of human pride. Hank doesn't see Heisenberg because he doesn't want to. Because the truth would mean admitting that his whole career, his whole identity as the clever alpha lawman, was a farce. He could face a drug cartel without blinking, but he couldn't face his own reflection. And perhaps that's the cruel genius of the series. Walt's transformation from spineless teacher to criminal overlord is less a metamorphosis than a revelation. He was always capable of monstrosity. Hank simply refused to believe it. In the same way, the audience once did. If Breaking Bad teaches anything, it's that monsters rarely come cloaked in mystery. They come wearing khakis, barbecuing chicken, and asking politely to borrow the tongs. Turns out the real blind spot was pride. Don't miss the next one. Subscribe.